Thanks a lot, Italia. A local attorney applauding the establishment of a new Rehabilitation of Offenders Committee. He is also clearing the air on the status of persons whose records are expunged and their employment chances. Betty Thompson-Moss reports.
It's been an uphill battle for convicts, some of them first-time offenders, teenagers and now elderly grandparents who sought help to have criminal records expunged. Recent legislation is helping to make this process easier. Legal advisor to the new Rehabilitation of Offenders Committee, Attorney Paul Jones, describes the legislation as modern and quite timely.
I consider this to be a very innovative piece of legislation that is ready to fit into the 21st century, ready to give our people in this country a second chance. Because there are persons who, for whatever reason, would have made a mistake or may have deliberately entered into a life of crime, and which would have caused them to have a conviction. But somewhere along the line, that person may have changed. And so I think it's more prudent than not to give that person a chance so that they can contribute to society, reduce recidivism in this country, and move on with a life of normalcy.
Attorney Jones, a former police officer, has witnessed the despair of many convicts.
It's been a long time coming. And I say that because from where I formerly worked at police headquarters, there were persons who came there on a daily basis who had a police record, had a conviction, and some of whom who would have been, had finished, served their time, had repaid their dues back to society, and this is now, in some instances, 20 years later. And when you have a criminal conviction of the extent to which it's a matter that perhaps can or cannot be expunged, it lingers over the individual head. And so I've seen the great and small.
From a legal standpoint, Jones says those persons who are granted expungement should not be discriminated against by employers.
No employer, no prospective employer has a right in law to question that person about an expungement that went through the proper procedures of law, and that this committee saw and recommended to be a prudent thing to do in terms of granting an expungement for that particular individual. In fact, it's an offense. It's an offense under the Act to hold an expunged record against an individual or to question them, to require them to produce that record.
The attorney, however, points out that there are instances and categories of employment where it's mandatory that present and past records are submitted.
Those particular areas will be some of the areas of essential services, doctors, they work with young people and vulnerable people, impressionable people, engineers and other persons of the like, policemen, defense force officers. They are amongst the accepted professions. And so therefore, those persons making application would have to declare what their record is.
Now, the Rehabilitation of Offenders Committee strongly feels that everyone deserves a second chance. And very soon, the team will be mounting public meetings to create greater awareness of the committee's role and garner support from the public for persons seeking a new lease on life. Betty Thompson-Moss for the Morning Edition.